So, new project already. Seems to be no breaks when it comes to me. I feel like I'm in the creative mood. I think it has to do with the weather, and tomorrow it's the 1st of June, so it really feels like summer is here. And that's the reason why I feel like this is the perfect opportunity to give my whole balcony a complete makeover. I feel like I haven't really had the motivation or inspiration for what to do with my balcony. I always find that no matter how much I redecorate them, I always felt like there's something missing. It's not like I feel complete with all the redecorations. And I guess I feel that I have been careless when it comes to being careful about the wooden tiles. Maybe it was the color or something. It wasn't really the style that I was going for when I was doing projects, when I was spray painting stuff and drilling something. The drill slipped and I made a hole in one of the wooden tiles, and I was like, yeah, whatever. And maybe the sander slipped and one of the tiles and removed some of the stain on the surface. And when that happened, it actually, now the inspiration and the ideas started to come up, because like I said, I sanded down the whole table to the natural wood finish, and I was like, right, I have an idea. What if I just take these tiles apart, put them inside, and give them a whole complete new makeover? So I feel that this project, it's not going to be a project that is like one piece. I'm going to give everything that is going to be on the balcony a complete makeover. Everything that I know that I can change, I'm going to change. So that's the plan I have. And the first thing we're going to focus on now are all of those wooden tiles that are going to be on the floor. I mean, I haven't removed these wooden tiles in like 3 years, so it had definitely collected a lot of dust and dirt and other things underneath the wooden tiles. It definitely need to be cleaned before I put back the wooden tiles when they're finished. Let's start making something beautiful here. Alright, so I have 4 options here of the wooden tiles. There are the exact same tiles that I use for the balcony floor. They are all sanded down to the natural wood, and then I have applied a different kind of application using chalk paint and then finished them off with finishing wax. At first we have here the graphite chalk paint. This half is with an opaque layer of the chalk paint. The other half is just thinned down graphite to make it more like a stain effect. And next to it we have the same exact techniques but using cocoa. And this option here is if I would use the antique white. And the last step is just showing you what the natural wood looks like when it's all sanded down, and what it looks like when I have applied one layer of finishing wax on it. So it definitely deepens and enhances all of the grains. I think we all know that the obvious winner here is the natural wood with a thin layer of finishing wax on it, because when it comes to having wooden tiles on a balcony that you want to feel very cozy and warm, using this natural wooden finish is going to enhance cozy factor of the balcony, and it's going to brighten up the balcony a lot more. And now I just want to work on the most time consuming part of this project, which is sanding down and adding a finishing wax to all of the wooden tiles. So, I'm now done thoroughly cleaning the wooden tiles. I'm just going to wait to see when the wooden tiles are completely dry, because I do not want to sand them when they're still a bit damp. It's going to be very hard to get an even sanded surface, because the sanding dust is not going to be like dust, it's going to be in clumps, just a mess. Hopefully, well, we'll see, but maybe the sanding process isn't going to be as much work as cleaning and vacuuming all of these parts. Because on the wooden tiles, the only parts I have to sand are the top surface of the wooden tiles, because I won't be able to sand parts underneath because it has this plastic that keeps all of these wooden parts together. I'm just gonna let all of these pieces dry, and then I can start testing out some sanding on one of the wooden tiles. Alright, so I'm going to take a break for today. And I feel like I have made a great progress for just all the work I did in one day. I had to make sure that the tiles started to dry so they weren't wet or damp or anything like that before I start sanding. And I started trying out some sanding on some of these wooden tiles, and I still feel like they are still a little bit damp still. But from the result that I see on the tiles that I managed to sand today, I love the shade of the wooden tiles. It has more of a cool tone, gold shade to them. I'm already seeing an improvement of this balcony. It's probably going to be a lot quicker if I take my time to let these wooden pieces dry, because then it's sandpaper with no issue at all, just remove all of that darker stain. You have to excuse my cat Chester, he's eating right now if you're hearing some kind of noises in the background. Yeah, I barely got like 1/3 of all the wooden tiles done today. So I'm trying to do a technique where I'm just sanding like all of the corners and the edges of the wooden tiles. And I find that the technique of first sanding against the grain and then sand with the grain, that seems to go so lot faster to get the work done. So it pretty much isn't anything new to mention right now. I'm just going to continue with all the sanding on the wooden tiles. And when that process is done, I'm gonna clean all the tiles once more. And then I'm going to use a thin layer of the finishing wax that I used before. Alright, I'm gonna try and see if I can have some kind of system where I can feel like the process of working on the wooden tiles are going much faster. Also, I need some more rougher grit sandpaper, so I can't get them today. I'm going to get them tomorrow instead. So I thought it's better for me to just take a break from all the sanding and maybe start to work on the more exciting part. I have first used 150 grit sandpaper, and then I have used the 240 grit. So they are a little bit textured, but they are very smooth. And next step is going to first of all get rid of all the sanding dust that is still on the surface of these. So I'm going to use the vacuum, and then I'm going to use the same kind of cleaner I used to get rid of all the grease and dirt that might be on the surface of these wooden tiles, and the finishing wax that I used when I worked on the table. So that's the kind of process I'm thinking about. Sanding down some tiles all the way down to 240 grit, clean them, add a wax, apply them to the floor, so on and so forth until all the wooden tiles are finished. But that's all. Now I'm gonna vacuum these, clean them, and add a nice finish to them. To show what kind of process we're making here. This is what all the wooden tiles looked before, more like mahogany reddish brown. This is what they looked like sanded with 150 and 240 grit sandpaper, then vacuumed and cleaned so all the dust is gone. And this is from one layer of finishing wax. I don't know what they're going to look like when the actual wax has actually sunk into the wood, but now it has a very deep, richer tone. All of these wooden grains are deeper and enhanced. It's definitely a huge improvement from before. Definitely we're making a huge process here. I felt that the finishing wax didn't actually give me the kind of depth and contrast to the wooden tiles, so I decided to try the method of using canola oil to deepen and bring back all of those beautiful details in the grain and the contrast and all that. And it worked beautifully. It really enhanced all those beautiful details and gave it more of a luster to all the wooden tiles. So I mentioned to my parents that I have to buy some sandpaper. So they said, well, why don't you just come by? We have a lot of sandpaper here that we don't use. Instead of having to buy a whole set of new sandpaper and just spend a lot of money. Well, this isn't a little bit of sandpaper, man. These are like printer size sheets of rough grit sandpaper. Like these are pretty much similar to 80 grit sandpaper. Maybe they're a little bit rougher. They gave me pretty much their whole collection or something. They gave me a lot of sandpaper here. Water sandpaper, very fine sandpaper. But then there are some of these rougher grit that are like, I think some of them are like 220 grit and some of them are like 150 grit. And the rest of them are finer, like 400. And here also I have a whole bunch of rougher grit sandpaper, and these are 80 grit sandpapers. So many here, so I feel a bit spoiled right now because I didn't have to spend any money getting a whole bunch of fresh rough grit sandpaper. So finally I feel like I have enough of material so I can see that the process of sanding all these wooden tiles are going to be so much quicker now. These papers are definitely going to good use now, and I have so many leftovers for other projects. If there's something that I need a lot, it's sandpaper. Stuff that I do, sanding is a part of the process. I mean, that's just one of them, but this one is pretty much overkill from all the other projects that I have made. But definitely sandpaper is one of the most important things to use if you want to get a nice surface and a nice finish of something. Whew, I'm getting out of breath here. Yeah, so thank you, Mom and Dad. Thank you very much. I appreciate it a lot. Sure is a relief when your tools do all the work for you. No, I'm just kidding, obviously. It's just the magic of video editing. Ain't that beautiful? Yeah, but seriously, this is one of those moments, again, when I underestimate how long a project is going to take. I started this project the 1st of June and now it's the 18th. But obviously I didn't work on the wooden tiles for 17 days straight. I did other things during that time. Sometimes I felt like before I'm going insane I have to take a break. But obviously the finishing wax and the oil finish wasn't really the most time consuming part. It was all the sanding. You may have noticed one detail about the balcony, and that's the fact that all the tiles here, they look more symmetrical here, meaning I do not have any odd pieces like I had before, because before I used like some single wood pieces or maybe a pair of wood pieces just to fill up all of these empty spaces of the balcony in all of the corners. This time I decided to not use those. I wanted all these pieces to have a repeating pattern all over the balcony and didn't have anything distracting to it. And I decided to apply all the wooden tiles which had even empty spaces all around that are left on the balcony. And the reason for that is because this time when I was making the makeover of this balcony, I looked actually at some inspirations of balcony makeovers on TikTok and Pinterest, where I actually figured out that others who had a similar problem with the measurements of the wooden tiles compared to the balcony, if they also had these empty spaces that they couldn't fill up, they instead used like decorative stones in different sizes. Some used bigger, larger stones like this size, and others used smaller like this in a pile and filled up all those empty spaces. And since I don't have that many areas to fill up, I knew that I didn't need to buy many bags of these decorative stones. So the smallest one I found and the cheapest one I found was a 20 kilogram, almost like 44-pound bag full of these beautiful white marble stone. So that's the next step. That's what I'm going to add to the balcony. Now, because in this video I just want to focus on the floor of the balcony. So this is the bag. I know it doesn't look that much, but it's supposed to be able to fill up a square meter at least. 80% of this bag is supposed to be able to fill up a square meter of surface area. And the areas that I have to fill up are definitely not more than half a square meter. So So let's take a look at these stones. I want to make sure that I'm doing a diagonal cut here so I can easily just hold the bag and then just pour the stones into all the spaces that I want to apply them. We'll have to see. Maybe I have to do this by hand because the areas that I'm going to fill up there are so narrow, so maybe I have to do this using my hands. We'll see what happens once I start working on this. So I'm just gonna grab a handful to show you. So these are the stones that I'm going to use. They are a perfect size. The different sizes are in this bag is going to work on these empty spaces. So I'm going to show you what it looks like. I'm going to show you the process of me adding all of these beautiful stones to the corners of the balcony. So part one of this project is finally done. Looks like I have bought a completely new set, but these are just the same tiles that I had earlier, but I have just given them a completely new finish. This video is just about part one, meaning the groundwork of getting a nice base on the floor. The other parts of this project is going to focus on all the decorative parts. And like I mentioned before, I decided to remove some of the wooden tiles that are like odd pieces, but I didn't toss them. I'm going to put those pieces into good use. The next project is actually going to be a completely handmade project using leftover pieces of these tiles. And that's going to be a pedestal plant box, but that's going to be for the next project. But that's just a little bit of a sneak peek. So yeah, that's all for now. I can't complain about this finished project. It's more than I actually expected when I first had an idea in my head. I'm so happy about it. I couldn't be more proud with this finished result. Yeah, but that's all. That's part one of this project. There's many more to come. How many? I don't know yet. I hope you enjoyed this part of the makeover journey of this balcony. So thank you so much for watching and stay tuned for upcoming parts that are coming very soon.